Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Movie Mates podcast. I am Matthew, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Hey man, great to see you. Today, as you see by the title, it's our part two of our Disney saga here on the podcast. So I'm just going to pass over to Callum to explain what four movies we're going to be talking about today. So Callum, off to you, buddy.
Yeah, so in what is arguably the worst slate of films that
Yeah.
we've ever had to endure, today we'll be discussing Bambi, Saludos Amigos, the Three Caballeros, and Make Mine Music. We will put a disclaimer right now. Make Mine Music just doesn't exist on the internet.
Yeah.
We tried every avenue, legal or otherwise. Well, at least I did. I tried to find it in any capacity I could. There were some clips on YouTube. It didn't seem like it was worth it to just watch that because it
Yeah.
didn't seem like enough of the story. Because I've heard one of the most integral parts of the film is Peter and the Wolf, and there was nothing of there was no way to watch that available on YouTube or elsewhere. So today we'll just be giving our rough idea of what our thoughts could have been had we actually seen the film,
Yeah.
based on what we've read from other people, namely Wikipedia. Let's be honest. I don't think we'll be able to rate a film that we haven't seen, but I would say this is unprecedented movie mates territory where I haven't seen a film that we're discussing.
Yeah. But as Callum said, we have tried every avenue to watch this. We've looked online, we've tried to buy it, we've went into stores to try and see it, but we haven't found it. So this is, as you said, unprecedented movie mates territory. So hopefully you can forgive us on that one, viewers.
But it disappoints me that we launched into this so that I could finally say I've seen all the Disney animated movies, because that was the sole intention. Obviously,
Yeah,
taking movies off our bucket list and
yeah,
enjoying things and sharing our views. But I mean, we can't say that anymore because I mean, it seems like it's impossible to watch.
it is. Yeah, and it's not even on Disney Plus, which is so strange in itself, considering it's a Disney classic.
Yeah, and there's been no official explanation on that because there's obvious exclusions from Disney Plus, such as like Song of the South, which it has overtly racist portrayals of certain ethnic groups,
Okay.
and that's obviously that's abundantly obvious as to why they wouldn't want that in
Yeah.
in their in
Yeah.
their streaming service. But I mean, there seems to be no explanation for this
It's a strange
exclusion.
one. It's a strange one, man. But yeah. Just before we start off on this podcast, thank you to all of our friends who have recently subscribed. Shout out to Isha and Anna, and am I forgetting anyone else? Cash as well. But Cash is just a lovely man. He always supports us. So shout out to them. And am I missing
I
anyone
think
out?
I think Genevieve maybe
Genevieve,
subscribed.
yes, shout out
I don't know.
Genevieve, awesome. And just shout out. I apologize if I've forgotten any names there. But we really do appreciate it, don't we, Callum?
Yeah, we will shout out anyone on this podcast that wants it, honestly.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll have anyone on as guests if they want as well. We're desperate. We're desperate. But please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on these films in the comment section down below. Be sure to email us at moviematespodcast@gmail.com. We'll answer any emails there. And shall we crack on with our first film then, man? Yeah.
Yes, so the first
Let's do
film
it.
for today is Bambi, which I would say is the only film that we're going to talk about today where I have a pretty standard amount of notes. The other
Same.
ones are fuck my life, criminally short.
Absolutely, man. And this is probably the most successful and probably acclaimed film that out of the four that we're going to be talking about today. Bambi would probably be up there with the Snow Whites and the Pinocchios and the Dumbos, as we covered in our first episode. Would you agree?
Yeah, fuck knows why. This movie is 70% nothing.
It's a very nothing film, isn't it? And one thing that's really interesting, I looked up in the Wikipedia, as we like to do here in the channel, and apparently a live action remake is in development, but I have not, I've never heard of that before. Have you heard of this?
I hadn't heard about that, but I suppose with the popularity of The Jungle Book and Lion King,
Yeah,
I mean, Lion King didn't exactly do very well critically, but I mean, financially, money's all Disney really care about rather than artistic integrity these days.
yeah,
There was a nice sweet spot where that's all that they cared about, and films like The Lion King were sort of like made by Disney's B team, like that wasn't really
yeah,
a big thing on their mind. They didn't really care about money; it was just the artistic integrity.
yeah.
While they focused on Pocahontas, and then they made something great. So I mean, they should probably go back to that
Yeah.
mindset, and
If it ain't
they'd
broke,
probably be
don't
more
fix it.
successful. Yeah, but I mean, they have a tendency to do these live action adaptations, and they sort of extend the runtime from 70 minutes to 2 hours, like what the fuck do you add to
Painful.
Bambi?
I know.
Like
I know.
there's nothing in it. There's nothing that can be added to it. I don't know how you make the story of a deer interesting. I mean, I suppose they made for a lot of people the story of a lion interesting, so I suppose it's possible, but it'd be a struggle, I think, to make this
Absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah, like you said it perfectly, but it's sort of it's not really a nothing film, but it is a nothing much happens in it is definitely right, buddy. And I'm just happy to go by your notes, buddy, because I think I'm really interested to hear your points in this one.
Yep, sure. So jumping into the very opening scene of the film, it's sort of a minute or two long panning shot of just an empty, dull forest. Just, I mean, well animated, sure, but I mean, literally nothing interesting about it. Just my notes are sort of far away from me.
No worries.
I wrote that it screams of we don't have enough story to fill 70 minutes. Like at least put the credits over that animation if it needs to be there. I really don't feel like you should make your audience watch like a solid minute of just
Yeah, man.
panning over the forest.
It's a great point because I'm trying to think what is the runtime of this. It is about 70 minutes, isn't it? It's no
It is,
longer.
yeah.
Yeah. Even at that, that feels like a struggle to me. I think this film definitely could have been at around the half-hour mark, if I'm honest.
Yes, I said exactly that. I really think that at this point in their career, Disney should have been in the game of making, beautiful, incredible 10 to 30-minute short films, because there is in all the films that we've discussed, really, there is a solid, exceptional 30 minutes in all of them. And then they decide to pad it out with another 40 to 50 minutes of
Yeah.
meaningless, meandering garbage. So I think that the films would be served better to be shorter.
I agree, man, completely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Callum, because even the opening shot of the forest and stuff, and that's sort of a recurring shot throughout the film as well, because there's a lot of shots that like set up the action of the film, if you can call it that, and that could easily just have been cut, really, to be honest. And it's not that I don't think this film is as much of a drag as say like a maybe a
Three
Dumbo
Caballeros.
or a Three Caballeros or something like that, but I mean, it's it's not as well paced as I thought it was, given it's like a Disney classic. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, definitely. And speaking of the Disney classic character of Bambi, we are quickly introduced to this character.
Yeah,
And I would say that before watching the film, I was probably 60% sure that Bambi was a girl.
absolutely. I have the same point. I had said here. I think Bambi is somewhat characterized. Sorry, Bambi has somewhat of a female characterization, even in the animation. I think it's not a particularly like. I think you could definitely mistake Bambi for being a female doe if you hadn't already seen the film. So I thought Bambi
Yeah,
was a girl.
I mean, I would say in his baby form, he looks pretty much identical to his like romantic interest, Elaine. Like
Yeah.
I would say they're pretty much one to one identical.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. I think, but maybe I don't know. Maybe they could have done more animation work to sort of show the difference there. I don't know, but one thing about Bambi's character design, I just love how the deer in the film are animated like they move like actual deer move, and I thought that was really well put forth, and it came across really well in the animation. Like this is a fantastic animation. All the animals have such a great a great personality on screen, and that's probably one of my greatest praises I can give the film. It's very we can definitely feel the personalities from these animations. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, and speaking of movement, we sort of see that Bambi isn't particularly graceful
Oh
when running.
yeah,
I mean, they sort of give him a lot of shit for it. He's like 1 day old to get over it.
yeah,
But sort of the running really, it made me wonder whether that inspired, Ezra Miller's run in Justice League, sort of the
yeah.
wide
It's a good
kicking out
point.
of the calves.
It's a good point, man. It's a good point. And I think Bambi's definitely up there with the cutest Disney characters that we've watched so far. Maybe up there with Dumbo, I would certainly say. Adorable. And I think even the voice work, there's not much really. It's pretty much a silent film, to be honest.
Yeah, it is very limited, which I wasn't too sad about because I mean, they definitely had nothing interesting to say, so I guess don't say anything at all. There was no interesting dialogue. This movie pretty much, it held my attention the most of the three films that we actually watched for
Agreed.
today.
Agreed.
But it was still a struggle to pay attention, honestly.
Yeah, man, completely. And the fact that the biggest moment of the film kind of happens off screen a little bit, that says it all, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would say like what I found very funny about this film was that Bambi's just out there being a normal kid, and he's just wondering whether he can make other deer friends, and his mom just tells him to shut the fuck up, basically. Like
Yeah, I
he's like,
know.
but can I play with the other deer? She's like, hush now.
Hush,
Like,
darling. Yeah, yeah,
I
I
mean,
know.
you're like, it's weird because she's also like, it comes very across that she's like trying to like arrange marriage him with Feline, like
Yeah,
by going up to the mom and being like, "Ooh, our two kids are cute. Could they marry in the
yeah.
future?" But then he's like, "But can I have any friends?" And she's like, "Shut
No,
the
darling.
fuck
Yeah,
up."
I know. I know. I do like how Bambi sort of develops friendships with other animals in the forest. I think it's Thumper the rabbit. I love that character. And this, I think is the skunk called Flower? Yeah.
Yes, and we'll talk about the character Flower in just a little
Yeah,
bit.
no worries, man.
I have quite a bit to say. Um, yes. Uh, we can talk a little bit about Bambi's mother's death, because honestly, I don't think much happens, preceding that.
Mhm.
Uh, Matthew, you're famous for delighting in the murder of popular children's characters. How did this make you feel?
It made me feel like it was a lot more subtle than I thought it was before this, because you sort of think when you hear of Bambi, the big scene that comes up is like the heartbreaking nature of his mother's death. But I thought the film handled it really well. Actually, it sort of made me consider the contemporary issues regarding, big game hunting and just hunting animals in general in real life. And I don't know. It got me thinking about it because it still does exist in society. Maybe not so much in our country, but certainly in America and Canada, I would say it's definitely an issue there. So it's an interesting one because the big bad of the film, the man, as the animals call him, he's not really shown on screen. I don't think he is shown on screen, and that's maybe part of the. I think that adds to it. It's like the fear that the animals have towards the hunters, and I thought that was great. What did you
Yes,
think, buddy?
and as you sort of said about the animal rights side of it, this film actually inspired Paul McCartney in his
Oh,
earlier
really?
days of animal activism,
Love
and
that.
I can sort of understand the side of that, because I can't exactly put it all on you. I do sometimes find death in like kids films especially quite hilarious, but I suppose see it being an animal, I think makes it less funny, especially because it's not a comedic death. I mean,
Yeah,
with some deaths in these kinds of films, like the evil queen in Snow White, that's not meant to be funny, but it just is.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I think in this film, yeah, especially because you sort of see Bambi's face and him clearly being robbed of a family, like
Mhm.
you'd have to be kind of not well to find that like hilarious. Like I wasn't like cracking up as I was
Yeah, I know
watching
what
it.
you mean, buddy. Completely, Callum. And one thing following Bambi's mother's death, I thought and she's never given a name, is she? It's just Bambi's mum, isn't
No,
it? That's
no, yeah,
unusual. But one thing I didn't know about this film going into it was that there's a pretty much a 1 year time jump, and that was kind of unexpected for me. And I actually quite liked it and enjoyed it because it sort of gets the film doesn't necessarily get bogged, like the film maybe does towards the middle section get bogged down in the youthful Bambi's adventure, but then it sort of progresses to a year where he's fighting other deers to win over Faline, is it?
Feline, yeah.
Feline's affection. So I think the film drastically improves actually as it goes on.
Yeah, and I'm sort of looking forward to watching Bambi too, because it's set in the interim, the like the bit between Bambi's death and the time jump scene in this film. So I'm sort of
Mhm.
interested to see what took place there.
Absolutely,
Uh,
man.
but yeah, I do agree with you. Like I didn't really enjoy the part where it was sort of bogged down. Oh, he's on ice now. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I do feel that what little action is does take place in this film kicks into gear in the third act.
Completely, buddy. Completely. I think the relationship between Feline and Bambi's really well done actually because uh, I suppose the one scene that sort of was a little weird was when like Feline licks Bambi, but I suppose in the animal world that's like kissing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like when she stuck her full tongue out, I was like, "Is this a you?" Like
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
"What's
yeah.
going on now?"
Absolutely, man.
Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, and sort of different from that. I sort of just had a question. Is this just shit the Lion King? Because I mean,
It's a
it
great
seems
point.
that
It's a great point.
quite thematically, he's sort of born as the prince of the jungle or the forest in this instance, and his parental figure is killed, then he runs away and returns and reclaims the kingdom. I know obviously there isn't the force within the kingdom that is opposing him, but I feel like just thematically on a very simple level, this does seem kind of like proto Lion King.
Yeah, it does, man, and it's sort of weird because in that case Disney is sort of ripping off itself, isn't it?
I think that they do that quite frequently, when they realize that they can improve upon an idea that they did before. But that there is a lot of originality in the Disney films.
Yeah, man, and I think, to be honest, out of the five films that we've talked to up until this film, this might be my favorite so far, to be honest with you, buddy. And like it's certainly not like a masterpiece in my opinion, but I think it still holds up today. Like I think it's got some really good themes in there about like humanity being the enemy in the animal world, and in the sense from an animal rights perspective. So massive kudos to the film for that. And I think animation wise it looks stunning. The score is great as in general. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this one. I don't actually have many more notes really, to be honest, buddy. I'm just happy to go by whatever you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actively hate it. There were elements that I didn't enjoy, and
Yeah,
you
I
can't
get
really
you.
criticize a film where you sort of just where there's points where you just feel nothing.
I get you. I get
When
you.
there, because there was like a solid 30-minute stretch in the first act where literally nothing happens, and you can't really fault that because they're not doing anything good, but they're also not doing anything
Yeah,
bad with the
yeah,
film.
I
So
get you.
it's kind of difficult to criticize. But one thing you mentioned the character of Flower, and it took me 50 minutes to realize that that character was male. Because when Flower kissed the female skunk, I thought, like, wow, I didn't know the Bambi had gay representation. And then I was
Yeah.
swiftly disappointed because, we see sort of earlier in the film when Bambi first meets Thumper and then when
Mhm.
he first meets Flower, Flower seems very flattered by being called Flower. He says like, well, you can call me whatever you want. Like it seemed quite
It
flirtatious,
did. It did. It
and
did.
I thought, obviously Flower is not presented as a gay character, so it sort of seemed odd to me that they had that sort of seemingly flirtatious exchange. So I sort of completely misread it, and it took a
Me
very
too,
long
man.
time
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
to discover that.
And it's sort of weird because we've talked about sort of Bambi being characterized as somewhat of a female character. I would say Flower is definitely characterized as a female character from the start. Even the name Flower. Flowers are often associated with, you know, um, with women, I suppose, in many ways. So yeah, it was a very unusual choice, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, it's just stereotypical,
Yeah,
things associated with women. But you would think of the time, these kinds of films would make those
yeah,
uh kind of stereotypes because I mean, I think early Disney does stereotype a lot, so I would have
certainly.
expected those stereotypes to adhere to the genders
Yeah,
presented in the film. So
certainly.
yeah, that was a huge surprise for me.
Yeah,
Like there was a lot of this film that surprised me, honestly. One thing in particular was that it's mercifully unmusical. I'm never
yeah.
really a fan of like the old dreary songs in these films. I so far have not encountered a song that I enjoyed in the films that we've discussed so far. So I was very glad that there weren't any, absolute stinkers in this movie.
I agree, man. I agree, and I think maybe this film is definitely geared towards the more of a family film than we've seen previously, in a similar vein to the way Dumbo was. And I think we've mentioned this before on the podcast about sort of the early Disney works being more animal focused, and it's sort of a theme I wish the current uh the current sort of what's the word, like the current slate of
Era,
era
yeah,
the era or slate, yeah, of Disney films sort of geared towards was more animal themed, because I think it really works and it helps to build a really family friendly film. And like you said perfectly, bro, the lack of music is probably a relieving factor for us both, because there are some not there's some stinkers in there, but like not maybe because it's our generation, I don't know, but there's some songs that really drag, I think.
yeah. I mean, I would especially compare it to the situation that we had to put ourselves through
Oh, yeah,
yesterday.
yeah.
Because this is the same runtime as the Three Caballeros, and it's nowhere near as
Mhm.
uh,
Agreed.
as painful.
I agree.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
this film is if I had to describe this film in one adjective, it would be tolerable.
Mhm.
But the Three Caballeros, I would not
Yeah,
describe that way.
yeah, no, absolutely, man, absolutely. And
So my very final
yeah,
point plot
go for
wise for the film is the character of Man eventually sets fire to part of the forest. And what I was wondering is just what fucking idiot of a hunter sets a pack of wild dogs on the animals that you want to either eat or display?
I
Like
know.
those, like you set like six dogs on one deer, like they're gonna rip that to shreds.
Yeah, and like he's not very careful, is he, about his huntsmanship? You know, we see like he's not even very good. He misses the he misses the first shot, I think, doesn't he? And he's just a bit of an idiot because like I'm not a hunter and I don't know any hunters, but I would imagine, like you said, the aim of hunting is to eat or to display, and neither of those things are happening with dogs. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Most people, normally you wouldn't display a deer. You know, you would normally, eat the meat. But I mean, like that's all going to be gone. I assure you.
Yeah. What is deer venison? That is, yeah, that isn't it?
That's baby deer. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, that's interesting you mentioned that, bro. I hadn't actually considered that. It's a bit of a inconsistency there, I suppose. But have you got any other concluding points, buddy?
Nothing more from me, and that is by far the most notes I have for a film today.
Mine too, to be honest, buddy. I'd love to hear your rating, dude. Love to hear it.
I think once again, in sequence with how we've done this Disney franchise, and I think this will change, around the 80s or 90s, because I feel like at that point, our enjoyment and the quality of the film will be similar scores. But quality, taking into consideration the animation and the era in which it was released, the quality is probably an 8 or a 9, but my enjoyment was probably a 4.
I respect it, man. I respect that. And I'd say for me, quality 9, enjoyment probably a 7, 7.5. You know, it's certainly one of the better ones, I would say, in terms of quality that we've talked about. And like you said, it is a tolerable film. You know, it's certainly not bad by any
Yeah.
means. And yeah, I'm actually looking forward to Bambi too, because I haven't actually heard a lot about that. As it well acclaimed as well?
Bambi 2, I don't believe so. But just speaking to sort of ratings, like if there's a disastrously bad film that I really enjoy, obviously the enjoyment score will be really high and the quality will be very low. So when sort of like, and that's sort of recognizing that that's a bad film. Like I'm by no means calling this a bad film, because there are genuinely horrific films out there, but I just enjoy
Yeah,
them more
I get
sometimes.
you. 100%.
So like I'm not saying that this is a bad film.
I get you.
By no means is it a bad film. It's just not one that I had much fun with.
I get you, man. And sort of like a Spider-Man 3 scenario, I suppose, for us, because, we can acknowledge it's not the best ever made film ever, but we still find enjoyment out of it, you know?
But that's quite the reverse, I think, because I mean, I would say quality that's probably a 5 or 6, but enjoyment is 10 out of
Yeah,
10.
yeah, that's what I
So
mean. Like, it's
I would,
the opposite
yeah,
of Bambi, sort of.
yeah,
Yeah, I get
absolutely.
you. So, did you
And
want to hop in?
hopefully we cover like some disastrous films like The Room one day.
Yeah, because I always find the disaster films are sometimes the best ones, because that's the one where you get the most laughs, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I just love watching like critically panned films that are just hilariously bad.
But not utter must foul bad, because it's sort of a bad bad, not a funny bad.
No, like, if you're ever laughing, you're laughing at it, not with it. Yeah, like you're just saying, ugh. Like
Yeah.
there are a lot more groans than there are laughs when you're watching shit like Artemis Fowl. Like,
Absolutely.
because I mean that was a bad film where we recognized it was bad in quality and there was no enjoyment.
Yeah, yeah, it's sort of the worst mix of the two, really, in many ways.
Yeah, definitely. So our second film for today is Saludos Amigos, a film that I had never heard of
Me neither.
until very recently.
Yeah.
42-minute runtime, still too long.
Yeah, man, and I'd done wee bit of googling on this afternoon, and I had saw somewhere that this was the shortest. This is to the day the shortest Walt Disney Animation Studios film of all time, which I thought was
Yes,
interesting.
indeed.
And it was right, still too long.
uh, like this is painful.
So much could be cut out of this.
It's not Three Caballeros bad, but it's painful.
Yeah, this is. Yeah, I mean, I do think it is way better than Three Caballeros, but it's still much to be desired. I think here, because it's weird. We haven't really talked about animation mixed with real life images and before, and it just doesn't work in my opinion. and it never will work.
Definitely not at the time, and I will absolutely launch into further thoughts on that. Just give me a second. Either here or
Actually, I tell you what, the only time it does work is in 500 Days of Summer. That's all I'll say.
but that sort of yeah, that
That's
film I think
ironic, I suppose,
pulls it
isn't it?
off. Yeah,
Yeah,
you know, and there's sort of separations of like themes of like realism, especially because that's following a scene where he's sort of like playing out his reality versus expectation. So
exactly.
for his reality to move into something that's unrealistic is, you know, ironic and visually, you know, spectacular.
Yeah,
So give me a second because I'm
no
just seeing
worries.
where like a point.
One
Yeah,
thing,
okay, yeah, I talk about something like that in the Three
no worries.
Caballeros.
One thing about animation mixed with real life. Well, isn't there a film? Isn't does Space Jam do that?
Yes, Space Jam is Michael Jordan like playing basketball with Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, because I know that like True Jordy and Lawrence have talked about that a lot, and apparently, yeah, I haven't actually seen it. Have you?
No, I have not. I don't think I could suffer through it. Well, one that still looks good to this day is Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but that's not like flat 2D animation. Like there are dimensions to it, you know. But I
Yeah.
feel this really doesn't work because it's, you know, like flat 2D animation just like pasted awkwardly into like the corner of a live action scene.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. Like I said, I'm
And
just happy to go by your notes, buddy.
again, they're very brief. You
Mine
know,
too, man. Mine too.
probably, you know, in like fair enough in relation to how short the film actually is. Uh, and you know, I can't speak to the accuracy of the cultural representations within the film, but I do think that it's admirable that like Disney's goal is education. You know, this acts as
Absolutely.
like a documentary for Latin America. So you know, I think that, you know, its intentions are good. I can't speak to the accuracy of the time or of the culture though.
That's a great point, Callum, and I agree fully. I think the South American, sort of Latin American vibe that they're going for with these two films, because they're very similar films, and I had saw on Wikipedia that because World War II was happening at the time, and a lot of people who worked at the studios were either enlisted or had to work. I'm sure you know this, but like had to work
Yeah, yeah.
for like
The
propaganda
U.S. government,
agencies.
yeah, on
Yeah,
propaganda.
yeah. So that this was basically like on all these projects, like Three Caballeros, Saludos Amigos, were all left on the cutting room floor, weren't they? And basically,
Yeah, you know, all the ideas were pretty much left unfinished, and then they sort of like chopped them together and put them into like, you know, a package film, which is just, you know, sort of segments that are like very tenuously linked together.
so in that sense, I can sort of forgive it for the quality because I suppose if they're trying to keep, I don't know whether I'm just connecting two dots here, but if they're trying to keep the studio afloat in terms of financial, I can get why you would just put all these films, these segments together and call it a film for financial reasons. But that being said, if that wasn't the case, just don't release the film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I fully agree with you. You know, if you can't like, you know, it, because I mean, Walt Disney Animation Studios was never, you know, was never a failing enterprise. You know, they had enough money to just postpone, but I suppose they wouldn't know how long the war is going to last.
Exactly, man. Yeah, it's a great point, buddy. And you know what? Like we've said, I think the education system is really great, and it's not something you see these days, really, in kids' films. But that being said, the one thing I have here is, can you imagine Donald Duck as your tour guide?
Like
Painful.
I cannot like I'll go into Three Caballeros because he's the star of that. You know, I will go on a full rant,
Yeah,
but I can never picture myself as a child enjoying this character. And I have, you know, a comparison given to something else in popular culture right now in my Caballeros comments. But you know, I can't picture myself being a child and not finding that character infuriating.
yeah, man. I know. I suppose, and we'll get into it more in Three Caballeros. Like you said, he's the star of that, pretty much. But even to understand, I suppose it from Disney's perspective, they would say it's intentional that we're not supposed to understand him. But I mean, you can make out the odd word, but it's just ridiculous, I think.
But yeah, I mean, I assume his voice, you know, of it obviously is meant to represent, you know, a duck quack translated into English, basically. But I mean, is that meant to be funny?
I
Like,
don't know.
I think so.
It's not though. I don't think it ever was. Maybe it was for people. Maybe it's just our
Yeah,
sense of humor is different. But I didn't care for it.
because I mean, you know, I have watched other projects with Donald Duck, you know, closer to the 20, you know, the later
Yeah.
20th century slash, you know, early 21st century. And this seems to be a consistent portrayal. You know, he's still like this to this day.
Yeah,
And I suppose that that's just them adhering
I
to his
respect that in many
origins.
ways.
But yeah, but I mean, who is that character appealing to? You know,
Hmm.
because
It's a
I mean,
great
we
point.
do watch other kids stuff. You know, we watch animated shows all the time, and you know, we go back to like things that we're nostalgic for, and you know, like there's still a ton of enjoyment that we're able to take from that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
there's just nothing here really.
No, not at all, man. And there are some, I like we've said, we do prefer this. I would say to Three Caballeros, and there are some good scenes in here. I do quite enjoy the weird llama dance scene. I think it's serviceable. It works to some degree, and but that being said, we see like Donald and Donald Duck and the llama like on the bridge, and like it sort of got me thinking. Donald Duck's scared of falling off the bridge, but can ducks not fly?
Um, I believe so. I believe like some of the only flightless birds are like turkeys, emus, peacocks, penguins. Like I'm pretty confident that ducks can. I mean, even if he falls off the bridge, he's falling into water, right? And he should be able to
Yeah,
swim.
yeah. But no, the scene with the lamb was pretty good. I'm being a bit petty there, but I thought it was good. I thought it was okay.
I have literally nothing else on this film.
Okay. Well, one thing I did thought was very strange about this film was, but before I watched this in Disney Plus, it gave it like a brief disclaimer. This film depicts like tobacco, and I was like, okay, I'm sure it's maybe just in the human world they depict smoking, but in this film, Goofy's just smoking a cigar, just doing
Yeah, and
stuff. And I
is
thought
it
it
is
was
it
really
this or
weird.
the Three Caballeros where like a bird that Donald runs into, like the guy with sort of the umbrella used as a cane, like he's just
Yeah,
like smoking huge cigars.
I know, man. I know, and it's not like it's. I wouldn't maybe it's maybe not endorsing smoking, but it's just very straight. Like you can put it this way, like you probably
Yeah.
couldn't get away with it today by 21st century standards, and probably rightly so. It's probably not a great message to be sending there. But I can't remember. Was it this film or Three Caballeros where it's like Pedro the plane?
Uh, that was
That was this
fucking
film.
hell. I think that was Three Caballeros, wasn't
Because
it?
they're so similar in my opinion, aren't they?
Yeah,
Oh
incredibly.
no,
But
sorry, sorry,
I
it's
think
Saludos Amigos, I think.
was it
I think
shit?
I have in my notes here. I like Pedro the plane, so I didn't Saludos Amigos. So it must
Do
be that.
you?
Yeah, I like that. That was
See,
my favorite bit.
whenever I saw that character, I sort of looked up, the film Planes,
Mhm.
because one of the characters there, not Pedro or whatever, has like an exceptionally similar design to like the main character in
Yeah, yeah,
Planes.
yeah. I was thinking
Like
that.
the orange and white
I
painted
saw
one.
that, man. I was wondering if it was an influence, but no, that was probably the standout for me. But like I said, I've nothing more to say, buddy. I'd love to hear your rating.
So for quality of the film, I don't really think it's fair to judge because these were sort of made under duress. They're not really Disney enacting their creative vision. So I don't really think it's fair to rate it on
Great point.
quality.
It's a
So
great
I'm
point.
just gonna rate it on enjoyment, which was probably a 1 out of 10.
I respect it, man. And we've talked about the circumstances. Like these were unprecedented circumstances, really, at the time. So we can forgive it for that, I suppose. For me, I thought it was probably and this is gonna sound. I know I'm probably spoiling my ratings. This is probably the second best film out of the four, out of the three that we've seen today. And
It's not tough competition, mate.
exactly. And so I would say for me, enjoyment. I'd give it a 6. I think it was fine.
Fucking
It's
hell.
yeah, like it's not bad. It's not bad for me. But the one thing I think it certainly has a good creative vision from the sense that it wants to educate an American audience on Latin America, which I can respect. So from that perspective, yeah, pretty decent. But um, did you want to hop in with our third film today, then, buddy?
Yes. So the third film for today is The Three Caballeros,
Oh,
a film spearheaded by the darling Donald Duck, one of the
absolutely.
most intolerable twats in all of film history.
Yep,
Uh, and it just confuses me how this character became, like a staple Disney character. Because
it
there's
does.
plenty
Yeah.
of characters presented in, the films that we've watched so far, I'd never heard of. They've faded into obscurity, and I find them quite interesting.
Hmm.
But this character, who is just, unbelievably intolerable, and he is one of the most famous, iconic Disney characters of all time.
It's
I
baffling.
like it, yeah, the analogy that I used is that it's his presence makes my soul leave my body to sort of a similar degree as when like someone plays like Baby Shark or Flosses. Like it's that level of
Yeah.
it's that level of annoyance for me.
It kind of reminds me, like you said, that it makes my soul leave my body in a similar sense to when you know, the character from Misery gets his ankles snapped in that sort of sense. So only I wish that happened to me when I was watching this because it is baffling how this like you said, buddy. Excuse me, this character got so popular. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it was a different generational thing, but you know, it's just something about his voice, even his character design, even and this film is very slapstick, I suppose, and maybe that's why we're not huge fans of slapstick humor, I suppose, but it's just I think the character severely overrated.
Yes, definitely. And Matthew, for your next birthday, how would you feel about me just recounting a tale of an exotic bird for you?
I'd love it.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
buzzing for 19 for
buzzing
19?
for buzzing for that day, man. Like it's a strange birthday present, I'll be honest.
Yeah, could say shit.
Definitely shit. Definitely shit. You'd rather
I
get
mean, I guess
socks.
like yeah, I mean, I guess like the second or third present or whatever, he's like shrunk down into a storybook or some shit. Like I didn't actually pay enough attention to hear that. Like I read that on Wikipedia. Like I technically watched the film, but honestly, I
Yeah,
couldn't bear it. Apparently he gets like shrunk down into a storybook. I guess that's a good that's a
that's a good
good
idea.
experience.
Yeah,
If I could do that, I suppose I would. So I guess that's less shit than just like you know I guess like a film reel talking about a penguin.
yeah. To be and to be honest with you, man, and this says a lot about the film. The Pablo something about Pablo's that's the Pablo the Penguin journey around the world. It was probably my favorite segment of the film. I thought it was the most well created segment, and that's sort of where the film peaked for me in that opening 15-minute mark, which says a lot, really, because this is an hour runtime, isn't it, as well?
Oh yeah, it's a full 70 minutes, and it goes up right to the final second. Like I paid
Yeah,
attention. Like it's unbearable.
it's
And
not great.
yeah, as you said, the penguin bit is probably the peak of the film. And it's probably the only time I was actually paying attention. Like I watched this film around 3 a.m. So like just every time I checked the runtime, there was a sigh of contempt where I
Oh
was like,
man, I can
I
understand. I
can't
can
believe I'm
understand.
being subjected to this, but it by myself.
See, when you're watching a film and you're absolutely like dying to go to sleep, are you a guy who like sees it through to the end? Like, were you knackered when you were watching this?
Yeah, and I was gonna like crack on and watch Make Man music, and then obviously I couldn't find it anywhere on the internet,
Yeah,
so I was like, oh thank fuck,
yeah,
and I just went straight to sleep. But I would have powered through, like I had to finish it because I knew I wouldn't have time to finish it this morning.
yeah, man. And to be fair to the film, like this film sort of presents more of a Latin America, South American inspiration here, and I think there are some decent tunes in here regarding that. And but like we've said, the real life human interaction, it's so jarring
Yes,
because it's clear that in some way, I don't know if a green screen was a thing back then, but a sort of similar effect was used because even the animation style of the Three Caballeros, it shifts slightly and becomes a lot more grainy, and it just
yes,
doesn't work
yes.
at all. Did you get that? Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that 100%, and I also wrote the word jarring in my description, and sort of, a little bit of a diatribe about like what Disney's up to. I feel like Disney is known as revolutionary for being the first studio to attempt certain things. They're the first to like blend animation and visuals. They're the first to have a feature length animation film. And as I said, they're known as revolutionary for doing things first. Uh, but like they do it first, even if they know they can't do it well. And I really don't think you should follow through on an idea when you know you can't do it well just because you want to be able to do it first. They were like,
Yeah, it's a
oh
great
well,
point, man.
we can blend live action animation. It's not going to look good, but we'll do it so that we can be first. It just seems a bit petty, and it's sort of like it
I get you.
just seems like they realized that they could do it and didn't
Give it any
pursue
thought.
the artistic integrity. But I suppose that could also be blamed on, as we talked about, the idea of the package films, being sort of done on a budget and with lack of animators. So I
Yeah.
mean, I suppose it could be chalked up to that. But I do feel like I see that throughout other Disney films where I'm like, oh, you've clearly attempted that for the first time out of any filmmakers, but it's not good.
It's a great point, Callum, completely, buddy. And it sort of goes back to the old Cliff Robertson Uncle Ben, where it's like, I know that's a weird thing to say, but it'll make sense. Like the old Uncle Ben, like just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. It doesn't make it a good idea. And I feel like that's sort of where Disney's missed the mark here. Just because they can blend the human world and the animation world doesn't mean they should. Doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Exactly.
And yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, buddy, completely. Because at the start, the human interaction gets weird when the human characters are in the animated world. But then it gets way weirder when the Three Caballeros are then transported into the human world and the animation completely changes. So that's where, for me, the film is just on downward trajectory, personally.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm just wondering, like, where the appeal in this is to anyone, because I really feel like it's too irritating for adults and too dull for kids. Like, I really
Yeah,
don't see an audience here.
completely, man. And I think there's a scene where like Donald Duck is like perving on women with a telescope. That exists, doesn't it?
Very possibly, I would say like this film is 70 to 75 minutes long. I would say I actually had my eyes on the screen for like maybe 35,
Yeah,
and
me
then
too,
just
man. To be
listen to
honest
the
with you,
rest.
to be honest with you,
Like
me
it
too.
was.
It's not so often that I
I'm
have to go on a Wikipedia synopsis, like plot, just to keep up to date with the film. But I had to do it with this because
Yeah,
it's because it doesn't explain anything. It's weird because it has narration, but it explains nothing.
yeah. It's just like, and now Donald goes into the storybook. It's like, well, why the fuck can he do that? Why is he doing that? What's happening? You
Yeah,
like like
yeah,
it is just meaningless.
yeah.
And my last point for the film is this was obviously an arduous, horrific experience for the both of us. Is it worse than Fantasia?
I think Fantasia's got like a creative beauty that's definitely. I think if you're a fan of opera and like old fashioned 40s 30s animation, I think that is your perfect film. Whereas this film,
Exactly.
I don't think this film fits in a specific genre. Nor I do I think it's for anyone in particular. I can like if this film is your favorite film of all time, who am I to judge? Like fair enough, it's a personal choice. But for me, I think that Fantasia has more to offer for a wider audience. So Fantasia for me, man. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Fantasia has an audience clearly. It's visually and musically spectacular. It isn't enjoyable. It isn't a fun watch. I did not enjoy it whatsoever. But I resented this film. I
Yeah.
respected Fantasia, but I resented this.
That's a great point, buddy, and it stands to reason that's why no one's really heard of this film. And I don't mean that in an insulting way, but it is true. Like, who's heard of the Three Caballeros?
Presumably, no one.
I hadn't heard of it before this, and that's no disrespect. I know it takes a lot of effort to make a movie, 100%, and massive respect to the obviously at the time there was differing circumstances with the World War and so on. But yeah, it's the same thing. Like in ways, I respect the creative process, but likewise, just don't put it out there if you're not content with it.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have anything else, or do you want to hop into ratings?
I'm happy to go into ratings, man. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yes. So, as I said, I do struggle to rate the quality of the film due to it being created, as a package film during the Second World War. So, I would probably say the quality is in and around a 4 or a 3 or a 4. Because I really do think it struggles to find an audience. And enjoyment would be a 0. I fully
Yeah.
hated this experience.
Yeah, man, that's it's great. Really interesting you say that. For me, I would say, um, I would say quality. I would say a 7 or 7.5, just for the fact that it explores South America a little bit more, and I think it definitely tried something new with the human interaction. But that being said, doesn't make it a good idea. So that's why it's not like a 9 for me. So maybe quality a 7, enjoyment maybe a 4. It's not. It's definitely the worst one I think I've seen so far from Disney.
Yeah, I think this is a real low point. Like we are gonna have to, battle through some really bad films. I think we've gotten through the majority of them, but there are another two package films for our next episode, uh, which are Melody Time and some of Fun and Fancy Free or some shit. So like, we'll be talking about those in the next Disney episode.
No worries, man.
So our last film for today, which we unfortunately could not view despite a strong effort from the both of us to find a copy of the film, is Make Mine Music. So we will
Absolutely.
just be going off of how it sounded from the Wikipedia
I'm on the
synopsis.
Wikipedia right now, and yeah, man. I like you said, this is directly from the Wikipedia. So as we said, during Second World War, Disney staff were in either in the army or U.S. government. So yeah, I think this was another package film, wasn't it? Yeah, along with Saludos Amigos and Three Caballeros, and yeah, I mean, it is really hard to analyze these segment films because in many ways they're like 10 individual short films, aren't they? So it is hard
Yes.
to rate.
But I would say in this instance, in the balance of runtime to number of segments, this is probably the best idea because, we have say the Three Caballeros, which is an hour and 10 minutes, but it's only split into three sections. So that means that you have to watch, three
Yeah.
incredibly boring,
Yeah, man.
tedious sections. But if you hate one section of, Make Mine Music, then the next one comes along in like 7 minutes.
Yeah,
It isn't
chop,
it isn't
chop.
that long
Yeah.
a wait.
Yeah.
So pretty much from everything I read, by all accounts, it seemed to be an improvement on the other two package films, and it didn't sound too bad, honestly.
It didn't. There was a particular section that I thought was quite interesting. And not interesting in the sense that like, oh, I want to see it, but not that. That sounds insulting. That sounds insulting. But there's a section here. All the cats join in, and apparently this segment features some mild female nudity that was edited out in both the US and UK DVD releases. Although the film's Japanese version also featured this without censoring it, which I think was really interesting for a Disney film to include female nudity.
Maybe
no,
maybe that's the reason why it's not on Disney Plus, because
maybe, yeah,
they've sort of made
yeah.
they've endeavored to put sort of uncensored depictions of their films on Disney Plus, because they sort of don't want to hide anything. They don't want to be scrutinized for over editing, because that's sort of like erasing history, good and bad. So
Yeah.
I think maybe they were just like, yeah, we just don't want to put that on.
Yeah, man. You can understand. Yeah, you can sort of understand why in that case. And there's another segment that really stood out to me. We're huge rom com guys. We love rom coms. Our favorite films are probably rom coms. And there was one here about Johnny Fedora and Alice Bluebonnet, and it's about two hats. Sorry, it's about two hats who fell in love in a department store window. And I think that sounds so lovely. I think that's a really good idea, because one is apparently sold, and Johnny, the other hat who isn't sold, is devoting himself to find her again, which I think is quite sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I sat there thinking like that sounds shite, but I don't know. Maybe if the animation sold me, and by all accounts, I assume the animation was of a high quality.
Yeah, and it sort of reminded me of, like, the old John Lewis ads. They kind of they say sort of, it kind of reminded me of maybe something like that could happen, because the John Lewis ads in many ways are their own sort of segments. And I would imagine that would have been quite similar to them, but who knows? Well, maybe we'll hopefully see it
Yes,
one day.
yes, hopefully so. Did you have anything further on the movie that we didn't see?
Nothing from me, buddy. Anything from you?
No, nothing for me. I don't think it's very fair for us to rate this film.
No, and you know what it is, man? I think one day we'll definitely have to get round to a mini review on this sometime. Just to say that we've watched the whole Disney oeuvre films.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd certainly love to do that.
Absolutely, man. So, I suppose this has been probably one of our shorter podcasts that we've done in recent weeks, but to be fair, we didn't have much to work with with three of
Yeah,
these films
to be
today.
fair.
So, I'm just going to pass over to Callum to explain what our next episode is going to be about.
Yes, so I'm not sure if we've confirmed this, but is the Jurassic World films.
Oh, good.
I was hoping to finish off the films in the Jurassic Park franchise with Jurassic World and Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, and then hopefully we'll finish up that trilogy when we talk about Dominion. I believe in summer of next year. I'm really looking forward to watching the Jurassic World films. After sort of leaving the high of the Jurassic Park films. Did you enjoy
Absolutely.
watching the Jurassic Park films
I had a
overall?
great time with the Jurassic Park films, and it's in a similar sense to how I had a great time with the Back to the Future films, because you sort of hear a lot about these classic franchises, and you sort of go into them with sort of high expectations, and you worry about them being overrated. But to be honest, I think they're they're underrated, if anything. You know, they're more appreciated for their cultural impact. Whereas for me, I think the filmmaking is second to none, really, for both of these franchises. So I can't wait for these modern ones. I've seen the first one, but I'm looking forward to Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah, usually people often like slate, you know, at least one film in the trilogy of, you know, say Back to the Future, with Back to the Future Part 3 and Jurassic Park. I think a lot of people aren't a fan of The Lost World, and a lot of people aren't a fan of the third one. But we
We had a good
enjoyed
time.
all three of both of those trilogies. And then
Absolutely.
beyond that episode, moving on to Disney Part 3. We'll be talking about, I believe it's called The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, and it's weird because, I mean, it's a film that's told in two sections. One is based on The Wind in the Willows, the novel, and then one is based on Sleepy Hollow. You know,
Okay.
that's not the actual name of the story. It's like the Adventures of Sleepy Hollow or some shit. But
Cool.
it seems weird for me. You know, those seem like two completely opposing story. Like it seems like those have no connection, because I don't think that one's considered like a package film, because it's not, you know, like a bunch of segments. It's, you know, just two halves of a film,
Yeah.
but they're two entirely unrelated halves. You know, it
Yeah.
just seems like a real weird mix. There's that Fun and Fancy Free, I believe it's called, uh, Cinderella, and uh, and Melody Time, I believe.
Cool.
I believe those are the ones that we'll be talking about next Disney episode, and I'm looking forward to Cinderella.
Yeah, man, and in a sort of similar sense to this episode that we've just done, you know, I would say, I'd say we'd probably both agree, like Bambi is sort of the big hitter out of these four that
Yes,
most people would recognize, and I suppose in the next episode, that's going to be Cinderella's role.
yes, and part 4 is pretty much like four bangers.
Is it? Oh, I can't wait! I can't wait because, you know, we've reviewed some good films, we've reviewed some bad films recently, and it's good to have a mix. So I'm just loving doing this series with you, buddy, in a similar way to the Pixar one. I'm having a great time.
Yeah, I'm really loving it. You know, I think it is making us more pop culturally aware, and I think it'll serve us if we, you know, want to join a film society or something. You know,
Yeah,
come
man.
us going to university.
Yeah, man, and as we said, you know, that before we started it, yeah, it gives us a good excuse to tick some much needed films off our bucket list that, you know, we wouldn't have seen otherwise. So it's always a win-win, and all gives us an excuse to be subscribed to Disney Plus.
Yes, definitely. And for me, Netflix, Amazon Prime, uh, and I'm sure other ones. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been great seeing you today, Matthew.
Likewise, buddy, I had a great time, and I thought you made some fantastic points in there, man. So yeah, shall we wrap up the episode then? Yeah.
Yes, sure.
No worries. So thank you for everyone who's listened today. We really do appreciate that. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Email us. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. And great to see you, Callum. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.
Bye bye.